A creature older than stars bowed before a trembling boy and called him my king. The military called it contamination. But tell me, what kind of universe kneels to a human voice that can barely speak? Where are you watching from? Subscribe and join the story. The radar station smelled like rust and old coffee. Noah Briggs pressed his headphones tighter, letting the static wash over everything else. Out here, 3 miles from Juneau proper, nobody asked him to repeat himself. Nobody laughed when the words caught in his throat like fishhooks. The aurora borealis painted the sky in sheets of green and violet. His mother, Tessa, had texted him twice. Dinner, homework, the usual. He'd respond later, maybe with an emoji. Emojis didn't stutter. He was adjusting the frequency dial when he heard it. Not static. Not quite. A pattern. Low notes that seemed to vibrate through the metal desk, up his arms, into his chest cavity. Like a cello made of glaciers. Noah's fingers froze on the dial. The pattern repeated. 3 long pulses, 2 short. A descending tone that made his teeth ache. He grabbed his portable recorder, fumbled with the cables. His hands were shaking. The sound was coming from the northwest. Aki Bay, maybe. The restricted zone. He shouldn't go. The signs were clear enough. After the Gate War, the government had cordoned off the entire coastline where the first contact had happened. Xenoactive material, they called it. Miners prohibited within 2 miles. His mom would kill him. But the sound, it was calling. No, it was singing. And somehow, impossibly, it felt like it knew he was listening. Noah stuffed his equipment into his backpack. The hike down to the shore took 40 minutes, his breath forming clouds in the October air. The closer he got, the more the vibration settled into his bones. Not unpleasant, like standing next to a speaker at a concert, feeling the bass in your sternum. The ice shelf stretched out before him, glowing faintly under the aurora, and there, beneath 20 feet of fractured glacier, was an eye, amber, the size of a dinner table. Watching him, Noah's recorder slipped from his hands. The eye blinked. The inner membrane formed patterns like crystalline tears. Then a voice, not in his ears, but behind them, inside his skull. Small one, you sing my tongue. Noah tried to answer. His mouth opened. The first syllable caught, tangled, refused to come out. Heat flooded his face. Even here, even now, his stupid, broken voice. But the ice beneath his feet hummed in response, harmonizing with his silence, completing the phrase he couldn't say. His legs gave out. He sat hard on the frozen ground, staring at the eye that somehow looked sad and ancient and unbearably kind. Then the floodlights hit. 3 black helicopters dropped from the clouds, rotors screaming. Men in tactical gear poured out, weapons raised, a voice over a megaphone. Step away from the xenoactive material. This is a restricted area. Miner detected. Initiating containment. Noah looked back at the eye. It was closing, slowly, like it was disappointed. Wait, he tried to say. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to wake you. Hands grabbed his shoulders, dragged him backward. The ice cracked once, a sound like a gunshot, and then the aurora flickered and died. The eye was gone, but the humming in his bones stayed. The interrogation room was too bright. Agent Lyle Carrera sat across from Noah, a tablet in his hands, his expression carved from granite. Tessa stood behind her son, one hand on his shoulder. Her paramedic uniform still smelled like antiseptic and sea salt. Let me be clear, Carrera said. You accessed a quarantine zone, made physical contact with xenoactive material. At 15 years old, do you understand the severity? Noah opened his mouth. Nothing came out. His tongue was lead. He's a child, Tessa said. Her voice was steady, but her grip on Noah's shoulder tightened. He didn't know what he was hearing. Oh, he knew! Carrera swiped through his tablet. We've been monitoring the signal for 3 weeks. It's been getting stronger, louder, and somehow this boy decoded it in one night with a ham radio and a dream. He leaned forward. What did it say to you, Noah? I don't. Noah's face burned. The syllables piled up in his throat like a car crash. It didn't say. It just sang. Sang. Carrera's eyebrow twitched. Son, that's an Eldraxi ancient, a biological weapon from the Gate War. It's been dormant for 20,000 years, and you woke it up. 20,000 years? Noah's mind reeled. The eye, that sad, amber eye. We'll need to move him to a containment facility, Carrera continued, ignoring Tessa's sharp intake of breath. White Room protocols. We need to understand if he's been compromised. Compromised? Tessa stepped around the chair, putting herself between Carrera and her son. He's not a weapon. He's my son. Ma'am, I understand your concern, but this isn't negotiable. Then make it negotiable. They stared at each other. Noah watched his mother's jaw set, that look she got when the Coast Guard told her a rescue was impossible, and she went anyway. Carrera stood. We'll continue this conversation with legal representation. Don't leave town. Outside in the parking lot, Tessa hugged Noah so hard his ribs creaked. We're going to figure this out, she whispered. I promise. Noah nodded against her shoulder, but he could still feel it. The hum, the song. It hadn't stopped. At school the next day, it got worse. Someone had leaked the story. Rhett Halverson, whose father owned half the shipping contracts in Juneau, cornered Noah by the lockers. So the Gago thinks he's special now? Rhett's voice was loud enough to carry. What did the alien say? To take me to your leader? Laughter rippled through the hallway. Noah shoved his books into his bag and walked away. Or tried to. Rhett grabbed his backpack. Hey, I'm talking to you, freak. Noah spun. For half a second he wanted to hit him. His fist clenched. Then the words came tumbling out, wrong and broken and useless. Leave me alone. More laughter. Rhett let go, smirking. Whatever, alien boy. That night, the news broke. Researchers from the Watchtower program confirmed it. An Eldraxi ancient, designated Corinaru, had been detected beneath the Juneau Fjord. Preliminary analysis suggested it had been there since before human civilization, and it was waking up. The broadcast showed grainy footage, scientists in hazmat suits, sonar readouts, and then, just for a moment, a shape beneath the ice, massive, winged. The anchor woman's voice was grim. Officials are urging calm, but the question remains. If the ancients are waking, what else might follow? Noah sat on his bed, staring at his phone. The hum in his chest was stronger now, insistent, like a heartbeat that wasn't his. Then the house shook, not an earthquake, something deeper, a vibration that rolled through the foundation, rattling windows, knocking picture frames off walls. Outside, people were screaming. Noah ran to the window. The sky over the bay was lit up, not with aurora but with bioluminescence. Blue and silver light, rising from the water like a pillar. And there, breaking through the ice, massive and impossible, was Corinaru. Wings like cathedral arches, crystalline plates catching the light. A head the size of a school bus, crowned with translucent crests. And eyes. Amber eyes that found Noah's window across 3 miles of darkness. The voice came again, not in his head this time. Out loud. Broadcast across every frequency, every radio, every phone. My king. The words echoed across Juneau, across the world, and the internet exploded. The media called it the Juneau event. Within 12 hours, martial law had been declared. Military vehicles rolled down Egan Drive. Helicopters circled the bay like vultures, and Noah's house was under surveillance. He couldn't sleep. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw those amber eyes, heard that voice. My king. What did that even mean? He was nobody, a 15-year-old kid who couldn't even order pizza without rehearsing the conversation first. Tessa found him at 3 in the morning, sitting in the garage, surrounded by his father's old equipment. Salvaged sonar buoys, weathered logbooks, the detritus of a man who had vanished into the North Pacific 5 years ago, searching for something the Coast Guard said didn't exist. "Couldn't sleep either," she said quietly, handing him a mug of hot chocolate. Noah wrapped his hands around it. The warmth helped. A little. "Mom, what was Dad looking for? Really?" Tessa was quiet for a long moment. Then she pulled down a metal case from the top shelf. Inside, wrapped in waterproof plastic, was a journal. His father's handwriting. "I found this 2 years ago," she said, "in a recovery buoy, coded frequency, meant for me. I didn't show you because I didn't know how." Noah opened it with shaking hands. Pages of technical notes, frequency charts, and there, sketched in pencil, the same symbol he'd seen on the Watchtower program's database, an Eldraxi glyph. His father had known, had been tracking the signal for years, and on the last page, a single sentence: "If they find the bearer, they'll use him. I can't let that happen." Bearer, not king. Bearer. Of what? Noah's chest tightened. "He didn't leave us. He was trying to protect." "Me?" "I think he was trying to protect everyone," Tessa said softly. "Including you, especially you." The anger hit first, hot and sharp and unfair. Why didn't he tell me? Why did he leave me alone with this broken voice and no way to fix it? But then, slower, colder, came the understanding. His father had known what Noah was, what he could become, and he'd tried to hide it, to keep Noah safe from people like Herrera. "I'm sorry," Noah whispered, not sure if he was talking to his mother or his father's ghost. "I'm so sorry." The doorbell rang. Tessa stiffened. Through the frosted glass, Noah could see the outline of someone small, angular, not military. The woman on their porch looked like she'd walked out of a university library and forgotten to sleep for 3 days. Wild gray hair, mismatched socks, eyes that burned with the intensity of someone who'd just solved an impossible equation. "Tessa Briggs, I'm Dr. Mireya Sol, linguist, xenoanthropologist, former consultant for the Watchtower program until they fired me for being right." She thrust a battered leather case at them. "I need to show you something, now, before they decide your son is a threat." Inside she spread papers across the kitchen table, ancient texts, translations, symbols that matched the ones in Noah's father's journal. "The Eldraxi don't have kings," Mireya said, her words rapid fire. The translation was wrong. Deliberate, maybe. A bearer isn't chosen by blood or prophecy. A bearer chooses themselves by singing the first note, by daring to compose with an ancient despite fear, despite impossibility. She looked at Noah. "Your father understood that. He was trying to be the bearer himself, to take the burden before you could, but he couldn't, because he wasn't the one the ancient heard." Noah's hands were shaking again. "But I can't even talk right. How am I supposed to sing?" "Maybe that's the point," Mireya said gently. "Maybe perfection isn't what they're listening for." The military cordon around the bay tightened that night. Noah watched the news. Corin Aru was visible now, half emerged from the ice. His crystalline plates caught the floodlights, throwing rainbow fractals across the water. And his eyes, always watching the town, watching Noah's window. Scientists were arguing, politicians were screaming, and somewhere in orbit, telescopes were tracking something new. Lights on Tier 7, Saturn's forgotten moon. The rest of the Eldraxi fleet, waking up. Noah pressed his hand against the window. The glass was cold, but beneath it, he could feel the hum. Stronger now. Not frightening. Just patient. "I don't know how to do this," he whispered. And then, as if in answer, the broadcast started. Every screen in Juno flickered. The image was grainy but unmistakable. Corin Aru, his head raised to the sky, crystalline throat glowing, and a voice, deep as tectonic plates, sad as the last song ever sung. "My king, I wait." The world heard him, and the world lost its mind. Mireia spread her pre-Diluvian manuscript across Tessa's kitchen table like a treasure map. The paper was so old it looked like it might crumble at a breath, but the symbols were clear. Eldraxi glyphs, hundreds of them. "Listen carefully," she said, pointing to a phrase. "This word, kormethane, the Watchtower translates it as command. But it's not. It's adjust. A bearer doesn't command an ancient. They adjust. They harmonize." Noah leaned closer. The symbol looked like two waves meeting, not one overtaking the other. Meeting. "So I'm not supposed to tell him what to do?" "You're supposed to sing with him," Mireia said. "Find the resonance, the space between notes where two voices become one melody." Outside, another convoy rolled past. More soldiers, more weapons. Carrera wasn't taking chances. "There's something else," Mireia continued, her voice dropping. "The telescopes picked up movement on Tyre 7, the Eldraxi fleet, 18 capital ships. They've been dormant since the Gate War ended. But when Korinaru woke, so did they. And right now they're running on their last received command." "Which was?" Tessa asked, though her face said she already knew. "Destroy enemy gates. Protect the bearer." Mireia's expression was grim. "If someone militarizes this, if they try to weaponize Korn and those ships, we'll have Gate War 2, and this time, humanity will be the enemy." Noah felt sick. His father's journal suddenly made terrible sense. If they find the bearer, they'll use him. He couldn't let that happen. But he also couldn't reach Korn. The military had the bay locked down. No one, in or out. "Then I'll bring him here," Noah said quietly. Over the next 3 days he built, scavenged parts from his father's equipment, borrowed a truck battery from a neighbor, wired together a transmission rig that looked like it had been assembled by a caffeinated raccoon. Tessa helped, her paramedic training making her surprisingly good at soldering. Mireia provided the frequency calculations. "This is insane," Tessa muttered, connecting the antenna wire. "You know that, right?" Yeah, Noah said, "but it's the good kind." At school, things got worse. Rhett cornered him in the bathroom, but this time he wasn't alone. 2 friends, all of them bigger. "My dad says you're dangerous," Rhett said. "Says the government's gonna relocate you, maybe lock you up." Noah tried to push past. Rhett shoved him back. "Or maybe," Rhett continued, "maybe I should just tell them where you go after school, what you're building. Bet there's a reward for that." Noah's fists clenched. "You wouldn't. Watch me." That afternoon, agents raided the garage. They found the transmitter, confiscated it, questioned Noah for 2 hours about what he was planning. He didn't answer. Couldn't answer. The words tangled and died in his throat. Tessa was livid. "You've got no warrant, no cause. Get out of my house." Carrera was calm, cold. "Ma'am, your son is attempting to communicate with a xenoactive entity. That's terrorism under the Gate protocols. He's 15. He's a threat." That night, Noah rebuilt the transmitter. Faster this time, simpler. He used his phone, 3 old speakers, and a modified snorkel tube as an amplifier. It looked ridiculous. It shouldn't work. But when he powered it on, pointed it toward the bay, and hummed. Just hummed the pattern he'd heard that first night. Something answered. Not words, just a vibration. A low, rolling tone that made the windows rattle and the dishes in the cabinet sing in sympathetic resonance. Mireia, who'd been dozing on the couch, sat bolt upright. "Holy God, he heard you." Noah hummed again. The response came faster this time, stronger. And underneath it, he could feel something else. Not sound, emotion, loneliness, hope, relief. Korinaru had been waiting for 20,000 years. And now, across 3 miles of ice and military blockade and impossible odds, he knew his bearer was still there. "Keep going," Mireia whispered. "You're building the bridge." Noah closed his eyes and sang. Really sang. Even though his voice cracked and the words wouldn't come, He sang. And somewhere out in the bay, beneath the floodlights and the fear, an ancient sang back. The kitchen radio flickered, then every radio in the neighborhood. Up and down the street people heard it, a duet, broken and beautiful and undeniable. And in a command center downtown, Lyle Carrera stared at the audio feed and made a decision that would change everything. He authorized Protocol Occident. Lethal containment. They had 6 hours to eliminate the threat before the fleet on Tier 7 completed its reactivation sequence. The countdown had begun. For 3 perfect hours, Noah thought he'd found the answer. The transmitter worked. Every night, he'd hum into the makeshift amplifier, and Korin Aru would answer. Not with words, not yet, but with tones that Noah was learning to understand. Sadness, curiosity, something that felt startlingly like affection. Mireya recorded everything, mapping the harmonic patterns. "You're not just communicating," she said, eyes wide. "You're teaching each other. This is first contact linguistics in real time." Tessa watched from the doorway, arms crossed, worry etched into every line of her face. "How long before Carrera finds out?" "He already knows," Mireya said quietly. "The question is how long before he acts." The answer came at dawn. Noah was jolted awake by his phone buzzing. A news alert. Protocol Occident had been authorized. Military helicopters were being equipped with specialized ordnance, oxidizing darts designed to shatter biocrystalline structures. They were going to kill Korin Aru. Noah's hands went numb. He ran to his mother's room. She was already up, watching the news, her face pale. "How long?" he asked. 18 hours. They're saying it's a preemptive measure, before the fleet on Tier 7 becomes fully operational. She pulled him close. "I'm so sorry, sweetheart." At school, Noah couldn't focus, couldn't breathe. His geometry teacher called on him twice. He didn't hear, just stared at the clock. Tick, 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 counting down to murder. Rhett found him at lunch, but this time he wasn't smirking. He looked sick. "My dad," Rhett said quietly, sitting across from Noah without invitation. "He's supplying the fuel for the helicopters. Got the contract this morning. He's celebrating." Noah looked up. Rhett's hands were shaking. "I told them where you were building that transmitter. I thought—" He swallowed hard. "I thought they'd just take it, maybe scare you. I didn't know they'd—" Kill him?" Noah's voice was flat. "I didn't know," Rhett whispered. "I swear." Noah stood, walked away. He didn't have time for apologies. That night he tried everything. Hacked into the military frequency, tried to warn them off, got immediately traced and shut down, called the governor's office, got a polite automated message, even tried to reach Korin directly, to tell him to run, to hide, to do something, but the ancient didn't understand. He just kept singing, patient, trusting, waiting for his bearer to come. "We have to do something," Noah said desperately. Mireya and Tessa were in the kitchen, surrounded by maps and data feeds. "There has to be a way." "There is," Mireya said. "You. If you can reach him, really reach him, establish the bearer bond, the fleet on Tier 7 might recognize it, might stand down." "They've got the bay sealed," Tessa said. "Armed guards every 50 yards. Then we go through them." They planned it like a heist. Tessa would use her Coast Guard credentials to access the restricted zone. Mireya would create a distraction. Noah would run for the ice. It was stupid, desperate, probably suicidal. "Let's go," Noah said. They made it half a mile before the searchlights found them. Agents poured out of vehicles. Carrera himself stepped forward, backlit by floodlights, his expression carved from stone. "This is your last warning," he said. "Stand down." "Not a chance," Tessa said. Carrera nodded to his men. They moved to arrest her. Noah shouted, broke free, sprinted for the shore. He could see the bay now, see the massive shape beneath the ice, see those amber eyes tracking him. He made it 10 yards before the tackle brought him down. Face first into frozen mud, hands zip-tied behind his back, Carrera's voice in his ear. "You're not helping him, son. You're making this worse." But then, through the chaos, through the shouting and the sirens, Noah heard it, a sound like glaciers cracking, like the earth itself exhaling. Korinaru was rising, the ice shattered, water displaced in massive waves, and there, fully visible for the first time, was the Ancient. Bigger than Noah had imagined, wings spanning 300 feet, crystalline plates refracting the floodlights into 1,000 colors, a face that was somehow reptilian and noble, and heartbreakingly familiar in its expression. And then Korinaru did something no one expected. He lowered his head, slowly, carefully, until his massive eyes were level with Noah, who was still zip-tied on the ground. The expression in those eyes, worry, affection. The same look Tessa gave Noah when he came home from school with bruises. Corin's inner membranes flickered, formed patterns, and Noah understood. The Ancient was crying for him. Carrera's radio crackled. The helicopters were inbound. 3 minutes out. Time had run out. They locked Noah in a mobile command unit. Steel walls, one narrow window. Outside he could see Korinaru, still watching, still waiting. The Ancient hadn't moved since lowering his head, as if frozen in mid-gesture of comfort. Mireia was arguing with Carrera through the door. Noah could hear fragments. Bearer bond, historical precedent, catastrophic miscalculation. Carrera wasn't listening. Then Tessa was there, having somehow talked her way in. She had his father's journal. Her hands were shaking. "There's more," she said quietly. "I didn't show you everything." She opened to a page Noah hadn't seen, a date from 20 years ago, before Noah was born. His father's handwriting, younger, more rushed. "Found him today. God help me, I found him. Under the ice where the old fisherman said the devil slept. Not a devil. Something older. Something that looked at me like it knew my great-grandfather. Tried to sing to it like the manuscript said. Failed. My voice isn't right. Not pure enough. It heard me anyway. Called me small king. I told it I wasn't a king. It said, 'Then bring me the one who is.'" Noah's chest tightened. His father had been there, had tried to be the bearer, had failed. There was more. Months of entries, his father studying Mireia's research, learning Eldraxi phonetics, trying again and again to complete the bond, and then the last entry. "They're coming for it. Watchtower program. They'll use it as a weapon. Use whoever can wake it. Can't let that happen. Can't let them find Noah. He's 3 years old, already humming patterns he shouldn't know. I see how he listens to music, how he feels it. God forgive me, I know what he is, and I have to hide it." The next page was blank except for coordinates, where his father's boat had last been seen. "He didn't disappear," Noah whispered. "He tried to lead them away from me." Tessa nodded, tears streaming down her face. "He loved you so much." Mireia burst in, breathless. "I finished the translation, the last phrase. It changes everything." She shoved her tablet at Noah. The glyphs were highlighted. A bearer does not command. A bearer dares to compose despite fear, despite imperfection, despite impossibility. She grabbed his shoulders. "Your father thought he failed because his voice wasn't perfect, but perfection was never the point. The Ancient chose you because of your stutter. Because you sing anyway. Because you keep trying when every word fights you. That's what brave sounds like." The door slammed open. Carrera, 2 soldiers. "Dr. Soul, you're under arrest for interfering with federal operations. Mrs. Briggs, you too." "No." Noah tried to stand. A soldier pushed him back down. "You have 6 hours, son," Carrera said. "Then we neutralize the threat, one way or another." They took Tessa. She fought, screamed Noah's name. It took 3 men to drag her out. The last thing Noah saw was her face, terrified and furious and loving, before the door slammed shut. He was alone. Outside, Corinaru's crystalline throat pulsed with bioluminescence, slow, rhythmic, like a heartbeat. In orbit, the fleet on Tier 7 was moving, 18 capital ships, breaking formation. Preliminary scans showed weapons charging, but not targeting Earth, targeting each other, and then targeting empty space. The dormant gates. They were executing their last command: destroy enemy gates. Without a bearer to adjust that command, they'd keep firing. At ghosts, at old wars, until they tore the solar system apart. Noah pressed his hands against the window. I don't know how to save you. I can't even say your name right. But then he remembered, the journal, his father's voice cracking as he tried to sing. Corin had heard him anyway, had called him Small King anyway. Maybe perfect didn't matter. Maybe what mattered was trying. Noah started humming, soft, broken. The same pattern he'd heard that first night. The pattern that sounded like a lullaby and a war cry and a love song all at once. Outside, Corin's eyes brightened. Through the command unit speakers, Noah heard it. The helicopters, approaching fast, 2 minutes out. He hummed louder. Corin responded, their voices tangled, imperfect, beautiful. And somewhere in orbit, 18 warships hesitated, waiting, listening, waiting for their bearer to tell them what to do. But Noah didn't know what to say, didn't know how to save his mother, save Corin, save the world with a voice that broke every third word. He pressed his forehead against the glass and wept. And Corin, ancient and patient and impossibly kind, wept with him, crystalline tears freezing as they fell. Noah woke to his phone buzzing. A message from an unknown number. 3 words. I'm so sorry. Then, 5 minutes later, Carrera's agents had his exact location, his backup transmitter, everything. Rhett had given him up. Again, they confiscated the equipment. Left Noah in the command unit with nothing. No phone, no tools, just the window and the view of Corinaru, whose crystalline plates were starting to dim. The ancient was dying, slowly starving without the song he needed to survive. The helicopters circled closer. Noah could see the dart launchers mounted on their sides, oxidizing agents. Within an hour, Corin's biocrystalline structure would shatter like glass. Noah pounded on the door, screamed. The guard outside didn't even look at him. He tried to sing anyway, voice raw, no equipment to amplify it. Just his broken, stuttering voice against 3 miles of wind and water and military interference. It wasn't enough. Corin's lights flickered, faded. The ancient's eyes closed halfway, exhausted. Noah slumped against the wall. This was it. This was how it ended. With him failing, just like always. Couldn't speak right, couldn't sing right, couldn't save anyone. His father had been wrong. Noah wasn't special. He was just broken in a way that hurt everyone around him. I'm sorry, he whispered to the empty room. I'm so sorry. Then the lights in the command unit flickered. The screens glowed white, and Noah felt it. A pulse, not sound. Deeper than sound, coming from Corin. The walls around him faded. Suddenly he was standing on ice, but different ice, 20 years ago. And there was his father, young, terrified, standing in front of Corinaru, who was smaller than, newly woken. His father opened his mouth to sing. The first note came out wrong, cracked, broke halfway through. He tried again, worse. His face crumpled in frustration, in shame. But Corin didn't look disappointed. The ancient leaned closer, and in a voice like mountains moving said, Small king sings with brave heart. Broken song is still song. Noah's father had wept, just like Noah was weeping now. The vision faded. Noah was back in the command unit, but he understood now. His father hadn't failed. He'd been afraid of failing. The fear had stopped him, not the stutter, not the imperfection. The fear. Outside, the helicopters were descending, 30 seconds to firing range. Noah stood. His legs shook. His voice would shake too. But maybe that was okay. Maybe brave didn't mean perfect. Maybe brave meant singing anyway. He pressed his hands against the window, closed his eyes, and began. No words, just sound. The pattern from his dreams, from his father's journal, from the static he'd heard that first night. It came out wrong, off-key. His breath hitched and the melody stumbled, but he kept going. Outside, Corin's eyes opened fully. The crystalline plates began to glow again, faint, flickering. But there, the ancient lifted his head, opened his jaws, and sang back. Their voices met, human and Eldraxi, broken and ancient, and where they touched, the air itself began to shimmer. The helicopters were 10 seconds out, darts loaded, targeting locked. Noah sang louder. His voice cracked. He didn't care. Corin harmonized. The water in the bay began to vibrate, ripples spreading outward in perfect circles. 5 seconds. The aurora overhead flared, green and violet in colors that didn't have names, bending down like curtains, like strings on a cosmic instrument. 3 seconds. Noah hit the final note, or tried to. It came out as a gasp, a sob, an imperfect human desperate sound, and Corin took that sound and made it beautiful. The ice beneath the ancient shattered, not from force, from resonance, from two voices finally, impossibly, finding the same frequency. The targeting systems on the helicopters went haywire. The darts fired wide, splashing harmlessly into empty water, and in orbit, 18 capital ships stopped dead. Their weapons powered down. Their formation shifted from offensive to protective. They'd heard their bearer. At last. But Noah collapsed. The effort had torn something in his throat, blood on his lips, vision swimming. The last thing he saw before darkness took him was Corin's massive wing curving over the command unit like a shield. The Ancient had chosen, and he would not let his bearer fall alone. Noah woke in a hospital bed. His throat felt like he'd swallowed broken glass. A medic was checking his vitals. Through the window, he could see Corin Aru, still positioned protectively over the bay. The Ancient hadn't moved. "Easy," the medic said. "You hemorrhaged your vocal cords. You're not supposed to be able to talk for a week." Noah tried anyway. Nothing came out but a wheeze. The door crashed open. Tessa, disheveled, furious, magnificent. She'd apparently broken out of holding with the help of a Coast Guard captain who'd decided Carrera had gone too far. She grabbed Noah in a hug that made his ribs creak. "Don't you ever," she whispered fiercely, "ever scare me like that again." Behind her, impossibly, was Rhett. He looked like he'd been crying. Maybe he had. "I couldn't." Rhett started. Stopped. When I saw what they were going to do, when I realized I'd helped, I had to do something. He'd blown up his father's fuel depot, not the whole thing, just enough to delay the helicopter refueling by 3 hours, enough for Noah's song to reach Corin. He was probably going to juvie. He didn't seem to care. "I'm sorry doesn't fix it," Rhett said quietly. "But I'm going to try anyway." Maria arrived next, laptop blazing with data. "The fleet on Tier 7 has entered what I'm translating as Cradle Protocol. They're not attacking, they're protecting, creating a defensive perimeter around Earth." She looked at Noah. "You didn't command them. You adjusted them, exactly like the text said." But Carrera wasn't done. News broke an hour later. He'd convinced the Joint Chiefs. One final strike. Nuclear option. Take out Corin Aru and deal with the fleet afterward. They had 12 hours. "They're terrified," Mireya said. "They don't understand the bond. They just see a weapon they can't control." "Then we make them understand," Tessa said. They broke Noah out of the hospital. It wasn't hard. Half the staff were locals who'd been watching the sky, watching Corin protect the town even as it was threatened with annihilation. They didn't stop Tessa from wheeling her son out the back exit. What happened next would be remembered as the Rally of the Thaw. First came Marjorie Chen, the school librarian. She brought coils of copper wire she'd scavenged from the art room. Then Hector Ruiz, the mechanic, with a car battery and jumper cables. Then Sandra Okoye, the harbor master, with weatherproof speakers from her boat. Word had spread. The kid who couldn't talk right had sung to an ancient being, had chosen peace when everyone else chose war, and now he needed help. By sunset, Noah's kitchen looked like a mad scientist's workshop. People brought what they could. A physics teacher brought an oscilloscope, a radio hobbyist brought amplifiers, a coffee shop owner brought donuts and stayed to solder circuits. They were building something together, not perfect, not military grade, but made with care and hope and a stubborn refusal to let fear win. Rhett showed up with his father's prototype radio equipment. "He's being arrested anyway," Rhett said. "Might as well steal from him first." Noah, still voiceless, directed with hand signals and scribbled notes. Mireya translated Eldraxi frequency patterns. Tessa kept everyone caffeinated and focused. 8 hours later they had it. The Monarch 01, they called it after Noah's father's research notes. A transmission system built from junk and love and collective defiance. "Will it work?" someone asked. Mireya checked her calculations. "The resonance mathematics are, well, they're impossible. But then again, so is everything else we've done." They loaded everything into Tessa's truck. The convoy that followed them to the shore was half the town. Fishing boats, personal vehicles, even the mayor's golf cart. When the military tried to stop them, the boats formed a blockade. Fishermen who'd lived on these waters for 60 years stood on their decks and refused to move. Carrera's voice crackled over a megaphone. "This is your final warning. Stand down or be arrested." Old Tom Whitaker, who'd pulled Noah's father from the water once, 20 years ago, stood at the bow of his trawler and flipped Carrera off. The blockade held. Noah walked onto the ice. His makeshift amplifier was ridiculous. A snorkel tube, speaker coils wrapped in duct tape, wires held together with hope. It looked like something a kid would build, because a kid had built it, with help. Korin Aru watched him approach. The ancient's eyes were bright again, alive and impossibly gentle. Noah stood at the edge of the ice. His throat was still ruined. His voice might never be the same. But he had the amplifier. He had his people behind him, and he had a song that refused to die. He looked up at Korin. The ancient lowered his massive head until they were eye to eye. "Sing with me, my king," Korin's voice rumbled. Noah placed the amplifier to his throat. His hands shook. The nuclear launch had been authorized. 20 minutes until impact. But first, one more song. One more impossible, beautiful, broken song. Noah began to hum, and the world held its breath. The missiles launched from Fort Richardson at 23:47. Nuclear tipped. 30 minutes to impact. Every phone in Juneau screamed the emergency alert. Noah pressed the amplifier to his ruined throat and began to sing. The first note came out wrong. Garbled. His damaged vocal cords couldn't hold the pitch. It cracked halfway through, dissolved into a wet cough that tasted like copper. Behind him, he heard gasps. Tessa's sharp intake of breath. He tried again. Worse. The note stuttered. B broke. Just like his V voice always did. The amplifier whined with feedback. 50 years of self-loathing crashed down on him. He couldn't do this. He'd never been able to do this. Why did anyone think he could save them when he couldn't even order pizza without... Coronaru's voice joined his, not correcting, not overpowering, harmonizing with the brokenness, taking Noah's fractured note and building a chord around it, making the stutter part of the melody instead of a mistake. The ice beneath them began to hum, a resonance so deep it bypassed ears and went straight to bone marrow. Noah gasped, tried the next phrase. It came out shattered. Korin caught each piece and wove them together like a mother bird rebuilding a nest. They were doing it. Actually doing it. Finding the space between notes where two impossible voices became one. The water in the bay started to move, not from wind, from sound. Ripples formed in perfect concentric circles expanding outward. The frequency made the molecules themselves dance, Above them, the aurora borealis flared, but this wasn't natural. The lights bent down like curtains caught in a draft, drawn by the resonance, green and violet and silver threads descending like the strings of a cosmic harp. Noah sang into his broken amplifier. The aurora answered. Corin sang with his crystalline throat. The bay answered. Together, they were turning the entire fjord into an instrument. The plates of ice cracked along harmonic lines, not shattering, aligning, creating acoustic channels that amplified the song across hundreds of miles. In orbit around Saturn, 18 capital ships of the Eldraxi fleet detected the signal. Their dormant systems, running on protocols older than human civilization, began processing. Command received, bearer located, adjusting. The warships turned, not toward Earth, toward formation, wings folding into protective arcs. The scattered fleet became a shell, a cradle, surrounding Earth like a mother's arms. Mission update propagating. New directive received. Not destroy, protect. But on Earth, Carrera watched the mushroom cloud timer tick down. 18 minutes, he'd lost control. The bearer bond was happening in real time, broadcast across every frequency. The world was watching a boy sing to a dragon. And it was working. He couldn't allow it. Couldn't let the narrative be rewritten. Couldn't admit he'd been wrong. Manual override, he snapped into his radio. Authorization Carrera Omega 7. Fire on the target. Around the bay, rail guns swiveled, loaded with armor-piercing rounds. Not meant for Corin, meant for the boy at his feet. Tessa saw it happening. The angle of the gun. The targeting laser painting her son's back. She screamed his name, started running. She'd never make it in time. But Rhett did. He'd stayed close to the command vehicle, waiting for the chance to redeem himself. When Carrera gave the order, Rhett grabbed a fire extinguisher and smashed the targeting console. Sparks flew. The gun turret froze mid-rotation. Guards grabbed him. Rhett fought. He was 15 and scrawny and terrified. He didn't stand a chance, but he'd bought 5 seconds. Tessa used them. She launched herself at the gun's manual control, ripped cables free with her bare hands. The current arced, burned her palms. She held on anyway. The gun fired, but without targeting, the shot went wide. Not wide enough. The round caught Noah in the shoulder, spun him like a top. He went down hard, the amplifier skittering across the ice. Blood sprayed across the white surface, black and stark and final. He tried to breathe, couldn't. The pain was everywhere and nowhere, distant, like it was happening to someone else. Corin Aru's roar split the sky. Not a song, a scream. Anguish so profound it shattered windows 3 miles away. The ancient moved faster than anything that size should move. His wings swept down, curved over Noah like a cathedral arch, shielding him. The crystalline plates absorbed 3 more shots meant for the boy. Cracks spiderwebbed across Corin's surface, fractures glowing with internal light. The pain feedback was instant. What hurt Corin hurt Noah. What hurt Noah hurt Corin. The bearer bond worked both ways. Noah felt the ancient's agony like his own body was breaking. Corin felt the boy's fading heartbeat like his own was stopping. They were dying together. 15 minutes until nuclear impact. The world watched, waited. Noah's vision was graying out. His blood was pooling on the ice. The amplifier was 5 feet away. Might as well be 5 miles. He couldn't reach it. Couldn't move. Couldn't breathe. But he could still sing. He opened his ruined throat and pushed sound through broken flesh. No words, no melody. Just a single sustained note. It came out wet. Wrong. A dying gasp. Corin joined him. The ancient's voice was cracked now too. Damaged by the bullets. Failing. 2 broken voices. 1 song. The note held. Barely. Wavering like a candle in a hurricane. But it held. Around them, reality bent. The aurora lights converged on the bay. The water rose in a column pulled up by pure acoustic force. The ice sang. The air sang. Every molecule within a mile radius locked into sympathetic vibration. And above, the fleet on Tier 7 completed its formation. 18 ships, wings spread, a shield against the void, against fear, against those who would destroy what they didn't understand. 10 minutes to impact. Noah felt his mother's hands on his face, felt her tears falling on his cheeks, heard her begging him to hold on. Please, baby, please hold on. He held the note. Corin held it with him. Their blood mixed on the ice, human red and Eldraxi silver, creating patterns like fractal flowers. 5 minutes. Mireia was shouting into a satellite phone, broadcasting the resonance frequency to every military installation on Earth, begging them to listen, to understand. The bearer bond wasn't a threat. It was a bridge. 3 minutes. The song reached its crescendo. Noah's consciousness was fragmenting, scattering like light through a prism. He could feel Corin's memories. 20,000 years of waiting, of hoping, of believing that somewhere, someone would sing back. 1 minute. The final note wasn't sound anymore. It was something deeper, a frequency that existed in the space between atoms, between heartbeats, between human and other. It resonated through Earth's magnetic field, reached the missiles, and gently, impossible as prayer, deactivated them. The warheads fell silent, tumbled harmlessly into the Pacific. Above Juno, the aurora formed words, visible from orbit, written in light that would be photographed 1,000,000 times. Piece by adjustment. Corin's doing. His last act before his damaged crystals finally gave out. The ancient collapsed, his wings still covering Noah, protecting him even in unconsciousness. And Noah, bleeding out on the ice, smiled. They'd done it. Together. Broken and impossible, and perfect. His mother was screaming for a medic. Rhett was crying. Mireia was laughing and sobbing simultaneously. But Noah just looked up at the words written in skyfire and felt, for the first time in his life, like his voice had been enough. The darkness took him gently, like falling asleep, like coming home. Noah woke 3 days later. The hospital room was full of flowers, cards from people he'd never met, a Get Well Soon banner that looked like it had been made by every elementary school in Alaska. His right ear heard nothing but a distant ringing. The doctors said it was permanent. The bullet had done damage they couldn't fully repair. His throat was wrapped in bandages. When he tried to talk, the words came out even more broken than before. Each syllable had a catch, a hitch, like a record skipping. "It's your new rhythm," Tessa said, holding his hand. Her palms were still bandaged from the electrical burns. Every drummer needs one. Mireia appeared in the doorway, tablet in hand, grinning like she'd won the lottery. "You need to see this." She pulled up the news feeds. Carrera had been removed from command, court-martialed. The leaked footage of him ordering fire on a miner had made him radioactive. The entire Watchtower program was being dismantled, investigated by 3 different oversight committees. Better yet, emergency legislation had passed through Congress in record time. The Briggs-Saul Act, named after Noah and Mireia. No miner could be used in xenoactive research without consent. No first contact situation could be weaponized without exhausting all diplomatic options. No bearer could be forced to serve. "You changed the law," Mireia said, "just by existing, by being stubborn enough to keep singing." Rhett came to visit on day 5. He stood in the doorway for 10 minutes before finding the courage to enter. He'd been charged as a juvenile for the fuel depot sabotage, community service, probation. His father had disowned him. "I don't expect you to forgive me," Rhett said quietly. "I just wanted you to know. I'm testifying against my dad, against everyone who supplied the weapons, and I'm starting a petition to make the fjord a protected zone, so nobody can ever threaten Corin again." Noah studied him, the bully who'd made his life hell, who'd betrayed him, who'd also saved his life. People were complicated. "Oh, okay," Noah said, his new voice, his drummer's rhythm. "But you're helping me rebuild the TR transmitter. Better this time." Rhett's eyes went wide. Then he smiled. Deal. They let Noah out of the hospital after 2 weeks. The doctors wanted longer, but Coronieru had been asking for him. The ancient's crystalline plates were healing, but slowly. He refused to fully rest until he saw his bearer. The town had transformed the bay. What had been a military cordon was now a park. The ice had been reinforced with platforms, observation decks, a small amphitheater where people could come and listen to Corin's song. Because the ancient sang now, every evening at sunset, a low, thrumming melody that carried across Juneau like a benediction. People came from across the world to hear it, to stand in the presence of something older than civilization and feel, for a moment, less alone. Noah walked onto the ice, his mother beside him, Mireia trailing behind with her ever-present tablet, and Rhett, awkward but determined, carrying the new transmitter they'd built together. Corin's head lifted. Those amber eyes, ancient and kind, found Noah immediately. "My king returns." The voice still resonated in Noah's chest, still made his bones hum, but now it felt like coming home. "I'm not a king," Noah said, his broken voice amplified across the bay. "You know that." "A king," Corin rumbled, "is not one who commands. A king is one who dares to sing first, who breathes when others forget how. You are king of brave hearts, small one, my king." Around them, the crowd had gathered, hundreds of people, watching the boy and the dragon, the bearer and the ancient, the bridge between species that everyone said was impossible. Noah placed his hand on Corin's scales. They were warm, solid, real. "Then I guess we're stuck with each other." "For as long as stars remember songs," Corin agreed. That night, the news showed footage from Tier 7. The fleet had completed its transformation. 18 ships in a perfect ring around Saturn's frozen moon, dormant but watchful. And on one of the human monitoring stations, a technician caught something odd on his screen. A display panel on the nearest Eldraxi ship flickered to life, ancient systems powering up just long enough to show a message in a language that took Mireia 3 days to translate. Chevron locked. Then it went dark again, waiting, watching, ready. Back in Juneau, Noah stood on his mother's porch and looked out at the bay, at Corin silhouetted against the aurora, at the town that had chosen hope over fear, at the sky where a fleet of ancient protectors kept their vigil. His phone buzzed. A message from Mireia. New translations, new mysteries, something about other ancients, other worlds, other songs waiting to be sung. Noah smiled. His face hurt, his shoulder ached, his voice would never be smooth, his hearing would never fully return. But he could still sing, and somewhere out there, in the vast and complicated universe, something might be listening. "Ready?" Tessa asked, appearing beside him with 2 mugs of hot chocolate. "For what? Whatever comes next." She handed him a mug. "The galaxy knows about you now, about us, about what humans do when they're told they can't do something." "What's that?" Tessa smiled. "We do it anyway, badly, stubbornly, beautifully. We improvise, we adjust, we keep singing even when our voices break." Far out in the bay, Corin Aru lifted his head to the stars and sang, the song of a bearer found, of a bond unbroken, of peace adjusted into being by the most unlikely voice in all the cosmos. And Noah, standing on his porch with his mother beside him and a universe of possibilities ahead, joined in. His rhythm was wrong. His pitch was broken. His voice was everything they'd told him would never be enough. It was perfect. Because when the galaxy told humanity to stay away from the ancient ones, to leave the sleeping gods alone, to keep their broken voices silent, what did humanity do? They sent a boy with a stutter and a dream. They built amplifiers from junk and love. They sang despite fear, despite pain, despite every reason to stay quiet. They chose to compose when the universe demanded silence. They chose to adjust when others wanted to command. They chose to be beautifully, stubbornly, impossibly human. And somewhere in the dark between stars, other ancients stirred. Other songs waited. Other boys and girls with voices the world told them weren't enough looked up at the sky and wondered. Maybe they could sing too. Maybe broken was exactly what the universe needed to hear. Humanity, fuck yeah. Maybe this was never a story about aliens or ancient dragons. Maybe it was about the moment a broken human voice refused to stay silent, and the universe listened. Because sometimes what saves the world isn't strength or perfection or command. It's the courage to sing off key and keep going anyway. So what would you do if the thing you thought made you weak turned out to be your bridge to something greater? Would you still hide your cracks or finally let them resonate? And if the universe really does respond to our imperfections, what song are you sending into the dark tonight? If you stayed with Noah and Corin until the very end, write the word adjustment in the comments. That's our anthem now. Tell us where you're watching from. Subscribe if you believe broken voices matter. Hit like to keep the signal alive. Share this story with someone who needs to hear it, and catch the next transmission in the card that's already lighting up your screen. Because somewhere out there, another ancient is listening, waiting for the next human brave and foolish enough to sing first.